Hello, hello. I am always glad to be sitting next to this one right here. We haven't been together in a minute. I think the last time we sat together was 5 years ago. And yeah. and
That's
I
wild.
and with each experience you can, expect me to have a podcast form where we just sit and talk. You don't have to expect anything. We're going to play a couple games, do a couple trivia. We got a Jeopardy game for you all. So again, make sure you're engaging in the comments. As you are popping on right now, go ahead and let us know where you're from, where you're tuning in from. I just moved from Mississippi, but we from Philly, Philadelphia over here. I wanted to point out Lindo got the glow up shirt on from back in the da.
Throwback. Here we go.
So I'm excited. Again, I'm Lukey Loose Leaf. You can follow me on all socials. That's Lukey, Loose Leaf as it sounds. And then my boy Lindo. Yes.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong screen. Here we go. Yeah.
And we also have my baby in the background, Nona.
Hi.
I sprung this on her, so we're truthful here. We're very transparent. She's in the background right now, but she's gonna hop on a little bit later. So we're just gonna hop right into it. Today is GLOwVOTE. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is GLOwVOTE 2024. The last time we did this was in 2020. When do you remember the last GLOwVOTE when we did Jeopardy? We had a few people on that time, a different age groups. We had the what were they, zillennials? We had the zillennials on. We had some baby boomers on.
Yeah, we was intergenerational with the
Yeah. We had some conversations about the upcoming election at the time, which Kamala was actually in, which she actually had dropped out the December before because of funding. But hey, now she's our candidate, and Trump is another candidate as well. We're not gonna speak too much on that, but hey, it's your voice, it's your vote. We're not swaying you anyway, but we just want to let you know that the local steps that we take can really transform our political society, political environment, political communities, and not just the local, state, national, but even global, by just taking those local steps. And that's pretty much what we're here to talk about today, just to spark some conversation and get you and us thinking about this election in a different way as we're approaching our largest election, which is the presidential election. However, we should, do this often, to where we are engaging with our community on a local level, because if we engage at a local level, those local community leaders will influence the the state leaders, and then the state leaders can influence the national can influence the global, and it is one big cycle. So Let's start with our local steps that will leap into political change. Alrighty, I did a lot of talking. First question for trivia. Rapid trivia just to, get us started.
Here we go. Let's see that
I got the answers right here, guys, because some of these I don't know myself.
Okay, cool.
And it's all right because we're all learning together. There are different learning curves when it comes to politics.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So no one feel that you're inadequate. This is supposed to be for learning, for awareness, and we're here to have fun. So let's have fun. Let's go. First question. What branch of government is responsible for making laws in the United States? First of all, some people don't even know all the branches.
I was going to say, is there a multiple choice list? Because I can pick from a multiple choice list.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm of two minds right now. I'm trying to figure out, is it Senate or Congress, and then I'm also just like, are they one and the same?
Yeah. So and they make up the legislative branch.
Okay, cool.
Is
that a point?
Yep. Then we have
right here.
What other branches are there? The executive branch.
Yeah.
Judicial branch.
Yes, it is a judicial branch.
Okay.
So judicial is just like all judges, and so like that's the Supreme Court, and then like lower court and high court stuff, and then we have executive branch, which I believe is like presidents and all that stuff, and then what's next? Congress.
Legislative.
So that's like Senate, Congress people, representative,
everybody who makes laws. So like our bills and everything, when those go in, those are bills that get turned into laws, right? So yeah. So legislative branch. How many? Let's quick Google it real quick. Branches of government, because I think we're missing one more. I think it's 4. Oh no, it's only 3. Okay.
Cool.
Yep. Okay. So the legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch enforces the laws. And then the judicial branch interprets the laws. That's interprets. That's
because some things are just like some things are just written in a way where do they apply to everybody. So like I'm trying to think. So same-sex marriage, when it came about, they were looking at the laws of just like, well, when you say who has the right to marry, does that include everybody and stuff like that? And like the wording, and like a comma here and a comma there. So it's like it's little stuff that judges have to make decisions about.
It was wild. One time, they were saying that there were bills being presented that they weren't even fully looking at. Like, you know what I'm saying? That they were just, I can't remember which specific one it was, but like I was just thinking about how you were talking about the commas and how it's worded and things like that. How often do you think, or do you believe, this is just our opinion, this isn't fact or anything, that they really have time to sit there and go through each bill?
Well, they do. I think this is like, I think this really is a nice segue into just talking about the judicial branches, because a lot of times what we see is just like, we see our state rep, but that state rep has 4 or 5 people that are working in the office that reads bills and then gives them the summary. That's the whole. So when you think of a lawyer, you often think of the paralegal person, and the paralegal person is really like looking through all the documents and then consulting the lawyer on it, and then they brainstorm together, and the lawyer becomes the face of that. So that's really how everything is said. And I bring that up in the sense of just like everything is thoroughly read, but by the time it gets to that one person that is, we see the face of it, we got to kind of think of it like PR, where it's just like, here's everything you're talking point. This is how we think this is going to stand. And that person is just in some ways like doing the theater of it, doing what is we know of. Like they're putting a face to it. So everybody has a team of 5 or 6 people, sometimes even more, depending on how much funding their particular office or just like sometimes volunteers is. So a lot of times when we think of just like the inaction of government, a lot of it is choice because they have the people to do the work and make sure that all these things are read and understood and written, but they just like stagnant.
Yeah. So when it comes to that, do you think we don't give much credit to the people behind the scenes that are doing the work? Like, because we normally take it out on the front end.
Yeah. I think, part of that is just like erasure in the sense of just like there's a systemic oppression of just like information because of just like how much we don't know and who has access to that information. So part of me is just like it's not anybody's personal fault, it's a system fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, of just like, the information is available, but then how do you get access to that information? And then another part of it is I think a lot of times we don't see those individuals doing that like in-person work. So therefore we can see a model in front of us and therefore we can say, oh, this is actually a job, this is actually something you could do. And then that leads to us like recognizing those people more in our community.
Awesome. So we just had 2 more people join us today. We're excited to have them with us. They're also camera shy, so you'll be hearing their voices maybe, but not their faces. Did you want to introduce yourselves? No, okay, that's perfect. So we're gonna hop. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Matt Mizzacappa. I'm a writer, actor. We're passionate about making the country better.
Awesome. And it's great that you said making the country better because we just talked about how local steps can leap us into that political change that we're looking for, not only on the national level, but global level. Because once we start on the local level, that goes to the state, national, global. So we love that you want to help change because that's what we're here to do. And we're just here to have fun. We're doing trivia right now, and we're going to hop into our second question. Let's go. All right. What year was the first president election held in the US of A?
What year?
What year? Now, I'm going to give y'all a hint. Because 1776, because of our 76ers, you know what I'm saying? That's when things started coming into play with the words and the papers and everything. So it has to be around the 1776 era. And
I keep thinking of, do I know Hamilton song lyrics right now, and it doesn't mention a year in there somewhere.
Yeah. So I know George Washington wasn't voted in. So I'm trying to think whoever was after him had to be the first election.
That's a great point. So start adding them years.
So, how many terms? And then I also think the length of time was different at that time. So so how long did George Washington was in office? And then we have the answer.
Nona, can you pull up those fun facts for us?
I'm looking at this Wikipedia first that came up when I asked for first presidential election in the U.S. United States elections of 1788 and 89. The first federal elections in the United States following the ratification of the United States Constitution in 1788.
Okay.
So George Washington was elected as the first president.
He was elected?
Oh, yes, he was elected.
Okay.
Unanimous election. Why we get one of them?
I was wrong.
Yeah, when could we get a unanimous?
Oh, wait a minute.
The country was a whole different place. I don't think we won that.
Yeah,
we talking about George Washington who had slave teeth. I'm like, enslaved people teeth. Okay. We don't need no one else with election.
Somebody said you don't have to worry
Oh, that. Oh, wow.
Electoral votes.
Exactly.
That's
That's what we're working against.
yeah, we are. All right, number 3. About to pop right into it. True or false? The U.S. Constitution allows presidents to serve for life.
That's not true.
False.
That's false. Yeah.
It's false, but
They refer to the president for their whole life, though.
Yeah.
I think it was only till relatively recently that the 2-term limit was put into the Constitution.
What do you mean recent?
Like after Roosevelt,
Oh, okay.
because he had 4 terms.
Now, it was put in by George. They asked George to run again. George said no.
Right.
George
And then
too.
George Washington.
Oh, word.
And then, I mean, you'll check on that one over. See?
Let's see. No, the U.S. Constitution does not allow presidents to serve for life.
Put in by George.
Mm.
Then because of the war and whatever was going on with the war, World War II and Roosevelt. That was what that was about.
22nd Amendment, 1951, to the Constitution of the United States, effectively limiting to 2 the number of terms a president of the United States may serve. It was one of 273 recommendations to the U.S. Congress by the Hoover Commission approved by the president. So it's the 22nd Amendment that
They did, but they allowed something to happen for Roosevelt.
Franklin D. Roosevelt is the only president to serve more than 2 terms, winning 4 elections in a row. And so that was before the 22nd Amendment.
So you said FDR was the only one who served more than 2 terms?
Yes.
And a term, of course, is 4 years. So a total of 8 years you can serve. And as we can see, it doesn't have to be consecutive with one of our potential candidates. All right. So here's a question. Which state has the most electoral votes in the presidential election? I'm going to give y'all a hint. Kamala's from there.
So we talking about California?
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like with so many issues with Florida, you feel like they would run this stuff. Yeah. California is such a big state.
It is a large state. And it's like it's always 2, isn't it? Always 2 Senate, and then the rest of them, the House is based on population. And there are a lot of places that has like smaller populations, but like, does that mean their voice counts less, or?
In the House of Representatives, yes, they have still have the same 2 senators, and their electoral college is smaller.
Do you think like if we get 2 Senate, why not like a set number of House of Representatives?
That was a compromise. I can't remember when. It was a historical compromise, and that's the way they came together, because they had to be able to give small places a voice, because they would have just been overrun by all the large states, and that was a political negotiation with the size of the states as well. So that's how they navigated it. House of Representatives is based on population. Every state gets 2 senators, no matter how small.
Awesome. That's awesome. But one of my things with that was we see a lot of their tactics where they'll try to either get a whole bunch of smaller states or just go after the larger states to try to pull in those electoral votes. Do you think the electoral votes have anything to do with how their campaign goes? You want to speak on that a little bit?
You want to speak on that too? That's the reason why we've been so heavily. They're all concerned about the electoral colleges, the electoral votes of the swing states. Pennsylvania's got the largest number, I think, of electoral votes in the swing states. Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. I don't have the numbers, but that's what they're after.
Mhm.
That's what they're after. They've got significant numbers. There are other swing states, but like, that's what makes them swing states, because they've got a significant number of electoral votes and they want them for their candidate.
So
Jump in anytime, anybody.
so when it
You
comes
want it.
so when it comes to the popular vote, like how when Hillary and won the popular vote but didn't win the electoral vote, how fair do you think that is to the smaller states who say like, hey, our electoral votes should matter?
Well, I don't want to cut anybody off.
No, I think the system of electoral votes is just like ridiculous, because it feels like it undermines the whole system of just like one vote, one count, when it feels like it's where you're participating at.
It kind of reminds me. So, when we were talking about the branches of government, and we were talking about how like laws are interpreted, and it could be a comma here, a comma there, and it can be that interpretation. And there was that question of whether these people who are making these decisions are actually reading through all of the details, and it's like, nah, it's their staff that's reading it. And so now you're getting things through the lens of the staff who are reading it and their interpretation being presented to this person. And that's what it feels like with the electoral votes, where it's just like you have these few people who are taking an interpretation of something and saying, yep, this is what it is. And that's not really accurate to, we're such a diverse country, and we are more diverse as we go. So it feels like when George Washington was president, it wasn't that much diversity in the people who held the power of the vote. Now, right. That's it. And so now that's not the case anymore. And so it's just like, it's a system that to me feels like it's not going to accurately represent this country versus the people in power.
Yeah.
So, but it is written into the Constitution, and that's what it's done.
Yeah.
It was the founding fathers, and this is how they envisioned it. It was a compromise.
And I think that's really
compromise between the popular vote of the citizens, whoever they were, and of course they were often not educated, not landed, not gentry, certainly not slaves. They were not even enslaved. These are just non-landed people who didn't own anything. And that would have been a popular vote. And they certainly always wanted to, in my opinion, suppress that. And it was a compromise between the popular vote and the vote in Congress.
Yeah.
So it was written into the Constitution.
I actually read somewhere that democracies that followed the USA did not have this electoral college system of this proportionate vote from different regions. It's one vote, that's it. And I mean, right now it seems like a few thousand people in Wisconsin or in Virginia or in Pennsylvania can now determine the rights of everyone in the whole country. Millions of people, millions of people in California, their rights were now determined by a few thousand people. So I think there's some, unfortunately, like failures in that system.
Yeah. I think it also, we have a constitution that hasn't been updated in a while. So even that, and I think a better example, when we was talking about how laws be interpreted, I brought up same-sex marriage, but I think a better example of that is the argument of just like the rights to bear arms, where it was initially introduced. We were thinking about like cannons and things that you had, muskets, and now it's just like, and then we're also thinking about a time where we did not have like such an organized military. So now like we have an organized military. These weapons are just like ridiculous. On the harm they could do. The right to bear arms have to be revisited, of just like what is that needed and how necessary is it?
it's being revisited frequently. I think that there's something in the Supreme Court now, but it may not address what your concerns are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always an amendment process to the Constitution, but good luck with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Supreme Court is, I think there's currently something, I think I read that, I can't remember what it was, but it's always being updated, not the Constitution, but, not amendments, but rulings.
Yeah.
Rulings are always being updated, but they may not be rulings you like or relevant to you.
Mm-hmm.
But they're always, they visit it all the time.
Yeah. That's a good point.
All the time, but you just don't like it what they say. And it's not your case.
Yeah.
I think they have one before them, or they just finished reading one.
Nona, did you want to add the comment from Herb?
This is so sophisticated. It makes me feel like I'm in a spaceship.
Okay. There we go, right there.
Just wanted to add that the Electoral College was invented to appease the slave states and is and was a vestige of slavery. That's why it wasn't initially in the Constitution.
Anyone wants to comment on that?
I was thinking about that, but I didn't want to say that confidently because I wasn't sure about that. But I'm glad someone else mentioned it.
So then it wasn't part of the original Constitution?
It was added, so it's one of those things where I feel like they're like, people are getting mad. Let's do something to make them feel better. Like, let's do something that makes it feel like
something's changing.
But it's actually not. So then it's just to say, okay, here you go. We're going to give you this.
Yeah.
It was did you want to read the? Go ahead. It was an argument during the time. There was an argument. See it?
Because during the time there was an argument about how much a Black person counts as a vote. The free states wanted to count their Black people as voted.
It's so interesting how many laws and things came out of just oppression here. And when I say interesting, it's just this is not a coincidence.
No, I mean, slavery was big business. Mm-hmm. This was business. Mm-hmm. From New England to Georgia. Mm-hmm. Everybody had their hands in it, from farmers who made the cotton, the slaves, the molasses. I mean, it was everybody. Caribbean, everybody had their money in it, had their hands in it. Yeah. The lumber, the lumber for the ships, the cotton for the sails. Mm-hmm. Everybody had their hands in it because everybody profited from it. Mm-hmm. Everybody. There wasn't anything. The banks, the insurances, everybody.
It reminds me of how a lot of companies were backing Trump because he's for businesses. So how do we feel about that being the driver for certain things? Because I like Chick-fil-A fries. I like me a good breakfast sandwich from Chick-fil-A, but now I feel like all the money that I've invested or spent or supported with Chick-fil-A has now helped a campaign that I no longer see.
There are a number of CEOs of popular brands that we use, and that I think I really don't do a deep dive in it, but there are a number of CEOs in popular brands. And you could decide to boycott it personally or publicly.
That's what people used to do. Boycott.
That is what people used to do. Mm-hmm. But here, that's not what we're doing. Yeah. That's not what we've done.
I often feel like for the ruling classes, people that are in the 1%, so much of politics when it comes to these campaigns and voting there's like not too much fundamental change, so they support both parties in some type of way, and
Absolutely.
it's just like,
Mhm.
what do I prefer?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Absolutely.
I think I I think the changes are just like so minor, that it really doesn't affect the 1% at all, and it's really sad.
We talked about oppression with the Black vote, but for our next question, when did women receive the right to vote?
So 1920.
Do we know the amendment? Which amendment it is? I think that's the actual question. I didn't read the question. What amendment gave women the right to vote in the United States?
The 19th Amendment.
Yes.
You know that off the top of your head, huh?
Yeah, it is the 19th Amendment.
Mhm.
Oh my
It's
God.
like 19 amendments. It's like, okay.
Okay. Wow.
So while the 19th Amendment protected women on paper, it only gave white women the right to vote in practice. Black, Native American, Asian American, and other women of color faced discrimination for another 45 years until the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Women with disabilities gained protections in 1990 with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah, I think that's like the nature of history, where we'll see some ruling change,
Mhm.
but then the enforcement of it and the regulation of it takes some time, because like you can say things in action, but you also have to recognize that will it be enforcing people's like actions and govern and the more rays of society.
Mhm.
Especially that what you read about the voting rights. Because part of my heritage is also Lenni Lenape. And it was always that people just were quiet about it because you would lose rights. Just because they passed a law, that didn't mean anything. People, the local enforcement is whatever it is. So that was not something that was always presented as an identity. And, you just were Black.
And that goes back to kind of what Herb, our other partner, was saying, in terms of the Electoral College, going back to whether is a Black person a whole person or not, So if they're not a whole person, can they get a whole vote? So
Yeah.
it goes back to everybody, even women. And then when it comes to these segments, even then, they're segregated within themselves, like how you were saying with the different ethnicities. So
Yeah, I mean, I think there's not even a debate of just like voting rights now, because like you can be stripped away of your voting rights because of what they deem as a crime, and I put that under just like quotations, because like a lot of times what is deemed as a crime is also just enforcing some form of enslavement through this idea of like criminalizing behaviors of like a certain group, or just like oppression. Yeah.
but now we can have presidents that are convicted
Well, wait a minute. Yes, they are. And there, I mean, the last I read, and I didn't read the whole article, I didn't keep up with it. Because the president was a convicted felon, is a convicted felon in New York, it would have changed his ability to vote if he was not allowed to vote in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So DeSantis said that he was going to work with the legislature and make it happen. And I didn't follow up on it because there was something going on right now in Florida, that he was, it was about abortion in Florida. And I can't remember what it was because I couldn't follow everything. But he weighed in on it. Now, I don't know, I'm sure the legislature was able to make something happen, but I don't know that. But I do know that DeSantis said that they were going to make something happen for him so that he would be able to participate in the ballot process in Florida, even though other convicted felons are not able to vote.
It wouldn't be the first time Florida has done something.
The irony is DeSantis sent police to people who had served time in prison,
Remember
but
that?
had made the effort to sign up to vote, and basically to intimidate them from voting, and then they won their case against him because it was illegal what he was doing. But now he's worshiping a felon, supporting a felon for president.
Because that occurred, this is 2024, so that was in 2020. He did that in 2020. And where there were persons who were getting ready to vote, and then he brought up that, there were police and lots of questioning about persons. And even though they did win their case, the whole idea was to threaten, intimidate, and scare, keep everybody away from exercising their right to vote. And it was, but here we are. We have another convicted felon, but he can vote.
Yeah, I can't remember the person's name, and I feel really regretful about it. But there was a Black woman who didn't know that because of her just like probation, she wasn't allowed to vote, and she voted that year, and then she got arrested, and I think she's currently serving time. I don't know if she's released yet and stuff like that, just because she voted. And there's like
it was mistaken. It was a mistake. She made a mistake. She just didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember what happened. I remember someone took up her case.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone took up her case because they were like, no, come on now.
Yeah. Is she still serving? Is she
It
released?
says Texas to reconsider case of Black woman sentenced to 5 years.
Oh, she was given 5 years for voting because she was on probation right now. Like earlier you had said just like you said enslavement in the past tense, but like when we think about incarceration, it's very much enslavement because like we locking people up for voting is wild. It's wild.
Throughout Mason's conviction in March.
Okay, they threw that out.
They threw out the conviction in March, so that means that she's not incarcerated now.
I believe so.
So I remember someone took that up.
Yeah. Shout out to them.
I can't remember who it was. So I just go to sleep with this. Like it's just like it's my like sleep music. I listen to it. It's like my restful music. It's not very restful at all.
Yeah, I like the fact that you're a political nerd.
Well, yeah. I'm also like, I'm praying heavy for Cammie here. It's just like, this is just, why is it even close? Why?
All right. So, speaking of Kamala, she's one of the youngest candidates, but we have
59.
Yeah, right. We have a candidate that actually was elected. Anyone know that was who was the youngest president elected? The actual question is, who was the youngest person ever elected president of the US of A?
I don't know that.
Yeah, you do.
He comes from a family that was like.
So we talking about Hawaii?
No, you know who it is.
The ideal family.
I don't. You giving hints, but this ain't working.
15th and one of the streets in Philly.
JFK?
Yeah, yes.
He was the youngest?
Yeah, he was the youngest.
41, sorry.
43, yeah.
43.
Yeah, he was 43.
Oh, wow.
Coming up on the anniversary of his assassination coming up on the 22nd of November.
Yeah, he was.
That was a very, very traumatizing day for many of us that remember that day.
And I don't remember that day, so.
Nikki Giovanni has this documentary out called Going to Mars, and it starts off with talking about memories that she chose to remember and memories she chose to forget. And she's in an interview this interview was predated. This is when she was when she was having a conversation with James Baldwin, and then she does a poem. She talks about how like all these assassinations happening, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, JFK, and it just really radicalized her. And she said something that was like really revolutionary that I'm not going to repeat right now because of the podcast, but it made me think of just like, her present day. She's about 81 now. Mm-hmm. And if you ask her about like what was she doing during like Martin Luther King assassination, she can't remember it because it was just like such a choice and such a just like hard thing. She was like, I know I was around, but I can't tell you what I'm doing, and that's the end of the question.
I mean, my mother will tell you she was actually staying in that hotel at that time, so she
was there at the hotel.
I don't know if she was there right before or right after. Like it was like around that same time period, but she'll go into a story about it.
Yeah. All of us remember where we were at the time of. It was very awful. I mean, you had Malcolm X, you had Martin Luther King, you then had you had JFK, you had Malcolm X, you had Martin Luther King. And then you had Bobby Kennedy, and it was just like that whole, like you're like whiplash, even though it went from 1963 to 1968, we just had never lived like that. Like, like, what? Assassination?
Yeah, look, that's time to be alive for the 5-year stretch period.
Mm-hmm. It was very, you just didn't even think these things were possible.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if Bobby Seale said it or somebody else from the Black Panther Party said it. When Martin Luther King was assassinated, he was like, they kill someone that's peaceful and they respect us to respond with peace. He said something along that lines. I'm paraphrasing. And Nikki Giovanni's poem that she did in that very moment is pretty much saying the same thing. Like right after JFK was assassinated, it's just like, man, this like righteous anger that you expect us is not going to be dormant. It's not going to be submissive. Like, yeah.
So what do we do? Like, I know Michelle Obama has like, when they go low, we go high kind of thing. And then it's just like, I know there are people who say like, well, we'll just keep doing the peaceful thing. Or there are certain people who say like, hey, they're like, we'll just keep working at it. But what happens when you keep getting poked and poked and poked? Do you think you change your tactics because that's like your stance and what your brand is and what you believe in? Or is it like, hey, by any means necessary?
I think I don't think it's an either response. I think there's an and, because like when I think about like the current war that's going on in Gaza and everything I have learned about it, I have learned so much about Gaza and everything that's going on because of just like the works that I read of James Baldwin. And I'm thinking about that incident that happened in the 1960s where we had that first incident that just like kind of created what we are seeing with Israel and Gaza. And then we have just like Angela Davis making a statement, and then Toni Morrison. And so we have like within 5 or 10 years, everybody's making another statement that is organizing people and revolutionizing people. And now when it comes here, we're seeing just like people acting in such a way where it's like, it's not just an article, it's not just a small protest. It is just like, it's a kind of like normal way to think of like, this is unfair. And I think we see that a lot of times where it's just like Black Lives Matter didn't just start 20 years ago. It started when like Martin Luther King was, talking to people about like, no, they just killed 2 trash people, black trash men. And then the language started to develop and the mindset started to develop, and we have 5 people showing up, and then we have 100 people show up. And then we also have other actions where we have people just like blowing up stuff. People that's just like ready to shoot people that feel as though they're going to cause harm. So I think with every kind of just like span of conversation, we're seeing different actions take place, and it's really amplifying now where it's just like I I don't know like if it's just like in like isolation that we're having these thoughts. I think we feel isolated because what we want is the same results that they've been arguing since the 1960s, where it was like they want to end a genocide. But what is happening with each win is like we organize and organize and unite more and more people. More and more people that felt like they were in the margins are now putting it into the center where it's like, oh my God. So I'm very hopeful, but I also feel like I don't feel like things are being lost on us. I think things are just like put upon us. I know James Baldwin is somewhere crying a tear, like, oh, you still have to do this work. But I'm like, well, the work feels a lot easier because you gave us a template.
In Iceland in the 70s, not so long ago, there was not equal pay and women had unequal rights, and they decided to strike. But it wasn't just women who had jobs that struck; it was all women. So moms went out of their house; they joined the strike, and the dads were left helpless. They had to go buy like sausages from the store. Like, wait, I have to actually take care of my kid and work and everything, what women have been doing for eons. And it worked. They got the rights, and then their the first democratically elected leader from the popular vote in history that was female in Iceland, like in 1980.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, I don't know, some kind of creative strike or action like that could have an effect.
Yeah, and I often think of just like because they know that we're like progressing so much, they create laws that make it even harder for us to do the things that is helping us move forward. Like we see example of this like with Amazon where they're like, oh my God, y'all got too many unions now. Where they're trying to create new ways where people can't eat together to organize, right? People can't take lunch breaks because they realize we're utilizing that time to unite together and organize. And that just didn't come overnight. Like I I I often say this of just like the work that we do is always intergenerational, even when it feels asynchronized, where it feels like we're working in isolation, because like so much of what I learned that has like revolutionized me, radicalized me, came from thinkers before me that I'm hearing from thinkers now right in front of me. Because like the first time I heard about a universal basic income, I heard it from a Martin Luther King speech where he was like, yo, I think Black people should get $300 a month to live off of. Just like, and I was like, he didn't use the language of universal basic income, or maybe he did, but that's what some people are arguing right now, is just like in a form of reparations or just in a form of just the working class moving up. We need an essential living that we all can have, so therefore we can get all the things that allow us to pursue our happiness. And that came from the 60s. So like I feel, to answer your question, I should have answered it short, but I went into this long thing. I feel like we're very much organized and we're doing everything in all to make things happen.
It feels like we get to a point where we're reaching a critical mass of just collective, everyone's sort of aligning in that, and then the people in power see that happening, and then they create something to help disrupt that. They create something to help distract us from reaching that, and it kind of sets us back a little bit. But every time, everyone is building upon the knowledge of the ones before, and that's everywhere you go. Like just with technology, it's building upon it. Everything that progresses is building upon what was learned before, and sometimes mistakes have to get made couple times before.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I'm old, and people
are
like,
you?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
And people were saying, well, I wasn't around in the civil rights movement, and I'm like, the civil rights movement is now. Like it's not like a movement, and like it had a beginning and an end. I mean, maybe if you read it on Wikipedia, maybe but we're always always striving for our civil rights. This is an ongoing, this isn't like a movement that's got a beginning and end, like a ride on a merry-go-round and like, it's off, you're off now. No, this is constantly evolving and evolving because we're still fighting for civil rights. We're still fighting for voting rights. That doesn't look like it did in 57, but now it's 2024, but we're still fighting for the same basic civil rights. We all don't have the same rights. We're still fighting. And it is a fight. It's not like, chilling over here. No, tactics change because the laws change and the people change and their little tricks change, but you're always on it. And especially for, younger people, they just feel like, oh, this is just like, it's just not fair. It's hard. I'm like, yeah. It's not fair. Of course it's not fair. It's not been fair forever. It's not been fair, but it's fairer now than it was. So you have to keep on moving. You have to keep on fighting every single day. You have to keep voting. You've got to keep voting in your local elections because those are the elections that are going to impact what happens on a state level. So you've got to keep on working on it each and every day. And it's not like the civil rights is over. No, the civil rights, this is still the same civil rights movement. Now we're just updated another 60 years.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Which is a great segue into our next trivia question. Because the minimum age that's required for voters. Well, let's answer the question first. What is the minimum age required to vote in the federal elections in the U.S.?
It's 18.
Yes, it is 18. Now, that reminds me of a movie that I watched. Herb put it on Fahrenheit 11/9. Or was it that one? I can't remember. It was either that one or another movie she put me onto, where the Zillennials were actually getting together and kind of like helping out the vote, so that younger generation who are in high school right now are making political changes, helping out, utilizing their skills and their resources to help push for a vote that they can't even participate in.
Yes. I met a few and I was like, yeah.
So y'all are talking about building upon like what was before you. So what we're building currently is what that generation has forward to look to. And it's just like they are going to be affected by what we're doing. So why can't they, have a vote, have a voice?
Have a vote and a voice, at least be active.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a conversation that is debated on, like, should the age be changed even lower to maybe like 16? I have heard that argument before. And right now I say yes. And I also say that it should reflect in all circumstances. Meaning, like, when we're introduced to politics, it's not when we think we become conscious of just like the electoral thing, the mayor, the government. It's actually once we're in pre-K, we were in school. Because the way government is supposed to be functioning is you're supposed to be judged by a jury and stuff like that. But what happens in the classroom is you're judged by a teacher that becomes jury and there's no peers, right? And I think that's a weird system. I'm speaking in draft right now. I think it's a weird system that young folks don't be able to just like argue against their suspensions, their expelling. The person they have to argue against is the person that could deem out the punishment. And I think it normalized the idea of just like, you don't have a voice, you don't have a right, and you have to then just accept punishment. And then I think it creates this idea of just like disengagement of government then.
You were shaking your head. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I think about just it brings up to mind a lot of the things with the education system these days, and how I always say that a lot of the systems in place for education systems are ways to basically create cogs in the machine, and who are going to follow the rules, not break outside of any sort of mold, get, oh, these are the people in authority and we're going to, we have no choice. And I get caught up in that. And so, yeah, that just brought that up for me. So
it kind of reminded me of SGA, like the Student Government Association, but like on a pre-K level. And I'm like, yikes.
So what I'm saying, you're introduced to it at pre-K.
No. Because like I remember Al Gore, the thing between Al Gore and Bush happened when I was in second grade. And that was a part of our current events that we had to turn something in. I couldn't vote for anything, but I was with my parents when they went to the polls and they were going inside the booth. I went in them to push the buttons, like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm being exposed to politics at a very young age. So I get where you're saying, like, we should be more engaged or taught to be more engaged at a younger age than what because it's kind of like once you about to turn 18, it's like, hey, you got a voice, got to use it now. And it's just like, wait, did you prepare me for this voice that I have?
I don't know. I mean, I was a teacher in North Philadelphia, and we had voting. They would bring the voting machines in for the class votings, and everyone, I think, like maybe there was middle school students who were running. They would do their presentations, and you would vote, and all that. And I think children, as maybe fifth graders, were, because this was going to be their incoming sixth graders, they were able to vote. And there may have been younger children too that were voting, and maybe it was mock presidential things as well, but real voting machines, because they borrowed them from the Board of Elections. And so I mean, like, the kids were going in there and they were with the little curtain and everything. So I mean, it was just they were moving on it at as early as third grade, as I remember. Because I remember, because we gave them lollipops and you stickers and all kinds of things like that. But they were aware. I don't remember whether they were voting on the president. I don't remember what it was, but they were voting. And I remember, like, wow, look at those are real machines. And so I thought it was great, and as well as people running for office, students in student government running for office and all of the things that they were promising, and maybe they could deliver, maybe they couldn't deliver.
That drives early too, where just because they promised a bunch of things doesn't mean
another
they could
version
actually
of reality. That's it. That's the reality. How many days off do you want?
Yeah, that's another part.
I think Project 2025, I'm going back to the pre-K, and they're really against that. And
what, pre-K?
Yeah, and it is against childcare, against pre-K, defund everything. They're very, very dangerous. Project 2025.
Oh, Project 2025 surely is on so many levels.
Which affects the
concept of
the people who can't vote currently.
The concept of expecting grandparents to be able to step in. I mean, like, what?
That's
grandparents are working.
Yeah.
Grandparents are retired. Maybe in that world, grandparents are retired. But in the world where
working class,
we all live, grandparents are still working. And even grandparents after 65 are still working. And then there are grandparents that travel up and down the turnpikes and highways and byways to take care of their grandchildren. But nobody's free to just like sit around and take it. You just can't. Childcare is a profession.
Yeah, it is.
After school is a profession. Keep those games and homework going and the food going and everything and get all that. That's just not whatever at all.
Yeah, I think it supports this idea of just like systemic fault is personal fault versus looking at it like, no, the system is failing us.
Yeah.
And I think
and
I think it's very similar and straight out of the Republican playbook of just like when Mitt Romney was running it, and he was like, we don't need universal health care because we have ER rooms. and we have emergency rooms where it's like, no, that's not how those things actually function. We don't need a better healthcare system. And I think it's pretty much, that's what they're saying now. It's like, oh, you don't need like pre-K and universal pre-K and all that.
None of that. It's all just, to me, it's the privilege of that, whatever that life is, that you have that much money that you can even imagine this. Because come on down here, people need pre-K in order to be able to go to school. And if you spent any time in the pre-K, you would see the magicians that those schools.
Sometimes grandma being taken care of too. Like grandma needs support. Grandpa needs support.
Exactly, absolutely. There was so many flaws in 2025 that just like makes me say, why is this even close?
And I think to your point, like it is like them being out of touch, but I also think there, when you look at the daycare system that we have, it puts so many people in debt, and it also pushes so many people out because it's so costly.
Because caring for children is costly.
Yeah.
No matter how you want to, maybe I just haven't. I mean, I'm not in daycare funding, but when you have this number of children, then you've got to feed them. Children eat immense amounts of food.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Breakfast, lunch, dinner.
They're
breakfast, lunch, dinner.
all
lunch, dinner.
just consumers in every way.
I feel like everything at this point in this country is a business, and it's all about how you can make money, how you can make the most money. And we've lost touch with our sense of community and care and that larger village sense where, we're all taking care of our kids in this space. And then it becomes expensive because now we are trying to survive ourselves, and then now we're trying to care for children and make sure that they survive, because then if you don't do a good job at that, then they're going to get taken away from you and put through that own hell. So it's just everything becomes a business, and the way that the people in power can make more money and hold on to that money without
and I'll push back just a little bit. You said, we're out of state, out of touch with just like, taking care of little ones. But I don't know a time period in American history where we had an idea of just like a safety net of just like making sure the kids were just taken care of. I don't think we ever was in touch with that. And because like it always been like you pass it on to your other parents, you pass it on to your village, but there was no system in place of saying like, this got me. It's like, I think it's so weird, and especially you hear this a lot of times with people that come from other countries, that we just have people that just don't have a house. That's just a normal thing for us here in America. And you go to other countries, you don't see that. Or you don't see it at the frequency. So I bring that up and say, it was like, we can actually do the thing where it's just like, you have a little one, it could be in daycare system, and it won't be a cost to you. It won't be a barrier. It'd be something normal. And I feel like something like that could happen in 6 months.
It could.
Conversation for another.
Awesome. And then for our last question.
Yeah, I have little ones.
How many?
Well, when I say I have children, I co-parent with my brother, and we raise a nephew together. And he's in middle school right now. Well, actually, he's in high school now. God, that just hit me. He's about to be, all right, cool. So I'm not biological. I'm not.
No, listen. Every family's coming in all different ways.
I think.
Are they still out in Germantown? I really didn't drive by there. Germantown.
I'm not sure. I think it was the actual computer. I think we're still good to go on the actual live. But for our last question, in which month Do U.S. presidential elections usually take place?
Oh, this is a layup. This is not even a layup. This is like a short toss.
Yep.
This is November, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
I was wondering about that now as a result of hurricanes and climate change. I was thinking, like, wow, look how vulnerable American elections are now. I mean, it was always bad, but now it's bad, bad, bad. From September, October, November, that whole time, maybe they should have them in March before hurricane season occurs.
Then you have the snow.
Well, snow melts.
Snow melts, but then like now these winters, depending on where you are, becoming so intense.
Are they
Where would
intense?
they be?
Well, I say.
I mean, like in the
Cause like
North like in the Dakotas. The Dakotas, the winter is bad.
You know what? I'm not gonna push back against that because like when I think of winter, I'm always thinking of snow, and I'm thinking how here in Philly we haven't experienced snow in a long time,
right?
But we have felt freezing temperatures where like we should not go outside because it's just cold. It's just cold.
But then you have mail-in ballots. Then you have February. February is a month not to be trifled with on any level. And, but April maybe. April is before hurricane season. May is before hurricane season. Hurricanes start to make up in the Atlantic in June.
I never thought about this question before. It was just like, should we change that ritual of just like?
I thought about it after I've watched this devastation and watched other devastations in southern states. Unexpected, because something comes up and whirls around in the Gulf and comes up either through Louisiana and this time it went through Florida, and it can take out Virginia. This time it was North Carolina. I mean, it's I lived in New York where it would take out New York, but it wouldn't be, it wasn't like this.
Yeah. I just recently moved back from Mississippi where, I've experienced everything from extreme weather to voter suppression. So I can only imagine what it would be like if it was, I guess it's closer to the time where they get inaugurated, but we can also change that day too,
So it seems like all these things are just dates when we're talking about when we go.
Yes, because historically they've been different. It wasn't January 20th. It was March something. It was a March date before. Yeah, it's all dates. They can change them. But certainly I like April.
I'm a fan of April Poetry Month, and that's my favorite month.
Awesome. So thank you all for participating in the trivia. I appreciate your just your ideas and just the thoughts that you brought to the table. Now Jeopardy.
Also, I thought that was Jeopardy. We about to get really real.
Yep. Is what we're going to end off with, but I have a couple questions I wanted us to kind of touch on before we hop into all the fun. So for the first question, why do you think local elections often receive less attention than presidential elections? I kind of want us to reflect on how media coverage and voter turnout might be different when these elections actually happen. I think of, even Herb brought this up in the chat, even with Bernie Sanders, with the support for him and things like that, where we've seen people, not show up in the Democratic election or other local elections, like for the mayor or for city council or whatever. Like I can't turn on the TV without seeing a commercial about Kamala or Trump. And sometimes I even get it in other languages. However, but what happens with that time when it's the local elections?
Yeah, I think it is PR. I think like on a national level, they have bigger budgets to do a
Money.
widespread. Because like in Philadelphia elections, a lot of times, the person that is out buying ads often wins elections. So when we look at Mayor Kenny, he was spending when he was running his second term, he was spending $100 for every other dollar that his competition was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think Cheryl Parker, who's our current mayor, started doing that once she was looking like the leading candidate. She just started out fundraising the other two candidates. So I think a lot of it is like the spending equates to like the press run.
They always thought that. They think that too in presidential races.
Yeah.
They said they equate who spends the most with who wins. And I can't remember what happened with Obama, because the Koch brothers were definitely targeting him, but they lost. And I can't remember, like, that's been a minute. So sorry, it's been a minute. I can't remember.
It's like marketing, and the thing that I think of, especially with local elections, is that the knowledge isn't there of who is doing who you should vote for, why you should vote for this candidate, outside of, they're a Democrat, I'm just going to vote for them. And it kind of reinforces this two-party system that we have. But because no one knows how to take the time to research what these candidates actually stand for, and what they stand for is going to affect us. And so because they don't know, then they're just like, well, it doesn't matter anyway. So, whatever is whatever. I'm just going to stay home for this one.
Yeah, I'm saying this out of curiosity. I don't think this is not something that is based on my readings or anything like that. But I'm thinking about it in this conversation of just like how presidential elections are normalized within the workplace, of just like people being able to get a day off or get a few hours of just like, being able to vote. And I wonder, are local elections not given that same kind of just like courtesy?
Depends on where you work. I mean, because I know, like where I work, it is a polling place, and so it's kind of right there in your face. You should probably be voting. But for others who are a lot of people in the service industry, where it doesn't, we're going 24/7. It doesn't. If you can't take time off.
Restaurants and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it doesn't give that space or grace to be able to participate. And then I don't know, like with now that we can get mail-in ballots and everything, I don't know if is it for every election. I'm trying to remember if it's for every election that we can.
That's my.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, that's my experience. Like every time
you're disabled. Yeah. Just for one election.
Right. So I think if we could lean more into trusting that system, and it gives people the freedom to be able to take their time and really look at what's on the ballot, because sometimes there's like questions on there, you don't know what's on there until you show up in that box and you're like, what is this about? Unless you take the time to check beforehand to see what you're going to be voting for. And then the way they word those questions, also confusing. So it's,
and we don't have personal assistants like they do to give us a summary.
I want to also add in this caveat. I recognize not everybody gets time and a half or whatever, or the day off to vote, but I'm thinking it's more normalized in those places where you do for presidential elections than I feel like local elections.
I'm reading here on this Wikipedia page because when I was a child, I was in New York. It was closed. Election day was off. There was no school. That was a window washing day in my house. And then they're saying that the fact that election day falls on Tuesday has become controversial in recent decades. This is a Wikipedia page. It's a public holiday in some states: Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Montana, New Jersey, New York, Virginia, West Virginia, as well as the territory in Northern Mariana and Puerto Rico. some states require it and then they get into the states.
Mhm.
Because I know that we always had it off. When I got to Pennsylvania, they were
Yeah.
like, no. You're like,
Yeah, I'm from Delaware, so that's,
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, it could be, but that's not. I mean, this is a Wikipedia
Dang.
page, so.
Yeah.
Even the states don't even have the same access.
No, states, you know how states are.
Yeah.
States' rights.
Yeah.
So, like, how we were talking about the voting, like when voting month is and how the climate shifts may affect that. So from Ninth Judicial Credit Historical Society, they were saying, like, why is Tuesday in November? So in the 1800s, most citizens worked as farmers and lived far from their polling place. So it took some time to get to where they could vote. So they needed to allow for a 2-day window for election day. And then weekends were impractical because Sundays for church, Wednesdays were market days for farmers. So they said, okay, Tuesday is going to be the most convenient work day.
Wednesday, and often November, for the most part, like the hard harvest was
It's-
done.
Yeah.
Spring and early summer elections were thought to interfere with the planting season. And late summer and early fall elections overlapped with the harvest.
Yeah.
So that just like
That reminds
it's the
me
same-
of when we were you about to say that about the tracks, the train track?
Oh, yes.
So every train track and every means of transportation is now based off of the anatomy of a horse. Because that's how they used to carry things. So they never changed the width requirement. So everything from trains to our current transportation is built off of
what a horse can
the size. The size of it.
Yeah. That's
The
why we
width
have
of
the
it.
expression horsepower.
Horsepower, but we were talking about like the width of the tracks,
Yeah.
like the train tracks, like why the width of the train tracks are that
Yeah.
way.
Oh, word. That's dope to know.
And it'd be like that for a long time.
Yeah, and it will continue to be that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it would mean changing.
And
some
Herb just
the-
said the width of
Fundamental
most
things.
Yeah.
cars or vehicles too.
Well, the manufacture of the ties and all that stuff. They're not doing that.
Yeah. Well,
That's funny. That is funny.
you live and you learn. That was
So-
nice information.
Absolutely.
Number 2, how can participating in local elections help influence policies at a national level?
Go ahead. Go. Huh?
Well, I think unfortunately that Republicans who have become a Trump party, they focus on this local elections,
do.
school board, trying to destroy education and destroy history, science, everything. But Democrats are fighting back and they're doing well in certain states with the school board. I think Republicans have been playing such a long game, Supreme Court justices, and with these local elections, and trying to teach children to hate. That's what they're trying to do, unfortunately. So yeah, I think they're very important. But how to get people people interested in it, or I don't know.
I think sometimes, when you're voting locally, you're able to see something that could work on a national level. Like I think about what they're doing in California right now, where they're fighting really hard for reparations and the successes that they get, that then can be like modeled here. So like in Philadelphia, they have built like this organization that's fighting very hard to, mimic what they're doing in California. And I think, a lot of just like the policies we see at state levels eventually become local levels. And it's because of just like what people have been able to argue like locally and see done.
It also puts the people, so they work their way up. So the people that you are voting for locally are the ones who are going to affect at the more national level. They're the ones that are in Congress making these decisions and everything. So it's just it feeds into, like, who you vote for at this level is going to affect who is in power in this level, and what can be influenced as you get higher.
Yeah.
Herb says, I think it helps change the pipeline from local leaders to statewide or national representatives by that there's always a pool of people who are voted by the people. Also that that abolishing the electoral college would do significantly more to affect change with our current democratic system.
I think it's
e-
also okay.
Even here in Philadelphia with our leading policy around abolishing stop and frisk is something other local government can copy.
I think it's education. I think that people, to me, are becoming more aware, either through the internet, information being more available to people. People are making the connection. Not everybody making the connection, but more people are making the connection between their local politics and getting things done and the national politics. To me, I think there are.
And
because the last election wasn't there pretty good participation in the last mayoral election?
I would say there was. I know that I feel like there was just a lot of things that were happening just within the community where they were able to, maybe it was just because of where I was working and they had the all of the mayoral candidates come out and just talk about
that happened a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of discussions. I mean, I was a part of Enon, and so there was always like they had maybe that discussion twice where people were coming, but it seemed to be active. People seemed to be paying attention. I don't remember that with Kenny as much.
Well, I remember I'm sorry.
No.
His first term, there was a pretty competitive race. But then his second term, it was only 3 people, and he was pretty much thought of as a thing. And then also Kenny, his personality, he just was pretty lazy. He didn't want to really be out there in the streets trying to run out votes. But I think after that, when it got really competitive, when it started off as like
there was a lot.
as 12, you had to, like, that made a difference. Who hand you shook and who hand you didn't made a difference of just like how far you was going to go. So I think that's why we saw a lot of FaceTime with people. And I felt like more excitement than, the second term that Kenny ran. But I can't think of like elections before that. Like, I can't think of just like, I honestly can't really remember what Mayor Nutter was going against or anything of that nature, or even Street. But I also think what also happened was since social media is bringing like a lot of just like local candidates national attention, that's what we're also experiencing as well too. What was her name? She got a lot of national attention. She had Bernie come out. Blanking. Helen Jim. Yes. So I think that also got a lot of people excitement where we're seeing like these local
national leaders
national leaders coming for local things.
I just think it's good. I think that there's just more excitement being generated and more interest being generated. People, to me, seem to be taking more an interest in what's going on for themselves and their lives. To me.
Yeah, and all these are great points because like I wanted to kind of discuss like innovative storytelling methods and how people are even utilizing media entertainment at a national level. So why can't we do that? Well, I guess with funding and things like that, but we can still get, maybe not like the Taylor Swift's or the Cardi B's, because Cardi B was for Bernie. She did a lot for Bernie. Taylor Swift's doing a lot for Kamala. Meg Thee Stallion came out for Kamala. So they're you say education, but like awareness is like it goes hand in hand with the education, right? So
Same thing, yeah.
like with me, I have a song that I came out with for the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. And then I created like a music video using the metaverse to produce it. And, pushing that would be like a great example of how, using that local, because that was a local issue in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi. That was like a way to push that narrative push for local change is for the water.
Wow.
Also, what are local issues, or what local issues matter most to you, and how do you think local officials can address them? Consider education, housing, healthcare, or any other community concerns, and how local candidates can be held accountable. That's the big part right there. It's the accountability piece.
I think for me, locally, being here in Philly, I feel like housing is like a really big issue. And maybe because maybe because I live in my bubble and I'm often trying to help people navigate evictions. I'm often trying to deal with people that are unhoused and how to get shelter. And I think about how Philadelphia has more abandoned buildings than we have just like unhoused people. And I'm like, why is that? And then I have lived in Philadelphia my whole life. I have seen the people that have been unhoused in my neighborhood still be unhoused in my neighborhood no matter how much development happens around them as far as like other houses being built. And I also see that the police budget is always increased at such a rapid rate. And I think about how so much of just like poverty and being unhoused leads to crime, but I have never seen the increase of just like housing at no cost or affordable cost increase so we can get crime down. But I have often seen like policing go up. So for me, like the easier concern is just like we can take some of the police budget to just allow housing, and that would help so many people like immediately,
Because
almost
you're
like
saying it will eliminate most of the crime that is
yeah. I
happening.
mean, if people robbing people because of their mortgage, and then you get rid of their issue with their mortgage, then here we are.
Do you have any thoughts that you would like to add?
I mean, education, as I was mentioning, is very important to me. Unfortunately, I don't really know how to solve it, but I know right now, as I was saying, we're in a very, very dangerous point because in Oklahoma, the superintendent, is trying to put Trump Bibles in every single classroom, and I happen to know a man who was a leader at a Catholic school in Camden, and they actually had a trailer from the government that they had to hook up that helped the school, but they had to have this extra trailer to separate church and state. So then to see in Oklahoma what's going on is just absolutely unbelievable. I think we have to address that, and with those local elections and school board, because if it can happen in Oklahoma, the theocracy, then it could happen here. But I know education has been very difficult for decades in Philadelphia. I think increasing pre-K, increasing funding for pre-K, I think that could help a lot.
Definitely.
Herb says reparations, cannabis regulation, and adult use provisions, and improvement in our strategy when revitalizing communities through extra support for emerging small businesses whose products and services would see improvement in the environments of the community. And finally, the reformation of our education system and the dire many Philadelphians who, you struggle to read at a third grade level, comprehension level.
Yeah.
That is a thing in terms of because I know I butchered trying to read that, but
you could see he probably made some.
No, I'm just joking, but
I feel like so much is so interconnected because then you go into the healthcare of it all, and our healthcare system loves to just like gouge people for money, and if you are sick or if you need and then mental health, we don't even get into mental health where it's just that's where a lot of unhoused people run into issues where they're not getting that support for their mental health needs and or any medical needs, so like pain management, and so then they fall under addiction issues, and then it just all kind of just spirals into something much larger. And I think it's like you can't have one without fixing the other, because the education helps with being able to navigate these systems. The housing is going to help you keep you safe. The medical is going to help you keep you healthy so that you can continue to do this. And then if you have all of those pillars covered, yes, the crime is going to go down, because they're not going to be people who are going to be just desperate for something to feel good about their lives.
To live out of like that thrive instead of trying to survive.
Yeah. Like, what a coincidence. It's not more policing.
What are the misconceptions people have about the impact on their local vote? Like, we can address common beliefs that people's voters in local elections don't matter as much as national elections.
It goes back to the visibility in the budgets, where there's much more coverage in the national elections, and so people don't have that awareness and knowledge of what the local elections actually mean and why they matter.
Maybe people don't see their issue being addressed in the local election. Maybe they don't really know what their issue is. Maybe they don't care enough. You know what I mean? Like, it could be any number of things,
Maybe they don't know that those are things that can be fixed. Like, because I know there was this one lady who was talking about how she fixed the potholes in her area, like whatever district it was, because she was able to get the local things passed that needed to be done to make sure the streets didn't call. Because you think about it, we drive on these streets to get to work, and our cars are being messed up, so that's even more money being taken out of their budget or whatever the case may be, because you can't even ride down the street without breaking your axle.
But I think that like now people have better access to find out what is being done. If you're interested.
But if you're interested, right.
You can find out which of these candidates is going to, if you're interested.
Right, but
I don't know how to get that. I mean, how do you
make people interested? Because people will complain all day. I hear people complaining all the time about streets of Philadelphia, but then I don't see all them people that's complaining voting. Right. I've been guilty a couple times.
But listen, you go to 311 and put in your issue. I'd be on 311.
Not a lot of people know that.
I was about to say, what's 311? Put his D.
311. You just go on your little machine under Philadelphia Gov or the streets department. Put in what you want. I want more lines. They painted those lines on my street to make them pop. So people, I've got speed
can see.
I feel like the at the end of our block where we have that mirror that lets you know that there's a car coming because there were so many accidents. That is something that you said we need this at the end of our block because we keep having accidents here.
And I mean, in my time here, I have found that under Parker's administration, there's been a lot more going on, and I have just been able to get some things done through 311 and my streets department.
Okay, well, y'all hear that? 311. I don't know if it's everywhere, but if you in Philly,
I wonder where that information can be more
accessible.
More accessible, where people can know.
Because I know
is where you go to get this information. This is where you go to do this. You have a problem with XYZ. This is how you know how to find the answer.
Philadelphia.gov.
Philadelphia.gov.
I think they have the answer because they was doing ever since I would say Nutter, they've been doing a good thing of building tourism in Philadelphia. And I remember seeing the Visit Philly signs and the X and the O signs, and then like it's a different kind of just like PR rollout. So like getting that information out with 311, they have all the talent, they have all the art. It's just about like, are they prioritizing it?
Yeah, the messaging.
Yeah.
On Shark Tank, there was it's funny because they had the dating app, which that did not get a deal, but was offered $30 million from Mark Cuban. But they didn't take the deal because it's so lucrative. But there was a guy who did propose a kind of government app in California. I believe. I think he did get a deal.
A government app would be I would definitely, like, if there's a way to secure a vote like on the app, I would definitely be down for that.
I mean, it might have been people kind of coming together to do things related to the government. I'm not sure, but I know that I think he did get a deal. Yeah.
That'd be dope if I could vote from my phone.
Was it a vote app or was it like a calling?
But like if everything, like if you could do everything there, like, cause like say if I want to like touch a candidate, right? And I want to know more about them, I can just use the app to click on their name and it will give me like their policies, other links that like I can be redirected to, and it's all in this one app. So that way, while I'm voting, I can get the resources that I need right then and there.
Yeah, I know it's not a government app, but there are apps that give you information about local things going on
and candidates.
But
all in one place, though. Yeah,
what you arguing for is a government app, which would be really dope.
Sort of action related to city council meeting. I don't know. I guess I just have to look up.
Like if Philly.gov had an app, or like whatever, or I guess America. Because it would have to be like each state would have to have their own.
Well, I don't think it just has to be one or the other. I think there's has to be an app, but there also has to be like door knocking.
Regular, because everybody don't have a smartphone.
Not even that. It's just like people receive information better, and in different ways. Like I remember, like 2021, my best way of organizing people was knocking on their door versus sending out text messages.
Yeah.
And it was real. And the things where it's just like I'll send a text message, hey, we're doing this action and such and such. Someone will send me a yes and say da da da. But then when I knocked on somebody's door that I didn't even know, I had a whole conversation about like not just this one action, but other actions that didn't need. And I think it built a rapport of like, oh, you care in this way. You can't, and it like mind you, door knocking is not for everybody. It's scary. Well, not even just scary in a way of just like anxiety. Like
you don't even know who's gonna answer.
But some people enjoy like in-person things that it just looks sexy, for lack of a better word, to them. It's not even just like I can't use the app or texting is not. It's just sexy to me. It's just like it attracts me in a way that the other messaging doesn't work.
On that, have you had a lot of people knocking on your door for Kamala? Yeah. Anybody? Nobody?
What's a lot? I had like 2 people.
I was about to say, they leave the things. Little
if you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had people knock.
Yeah, I have knockers.
Mm-hmm. I've had knockers.
I'm gonna skip over. I'm gonna skip over this question.
Things on the highway.
Okay.
They weren't there before. There were others there, but hers were not there. Very commanding.
I guess it was a fixed parking ticket app, but it was successful. And I think that Sharks envisioned expanding it.
I'm glad you looked that up of what that app was doing.
I mean, I'm on the Philly website. Yeah, and there's just so much.
That's what I found. It was very overwhelming. But because I'm OLD, what I do is I call 311 and then I wait, and then I have them help me navigate, because it's a lot.
It is a lot.
tired.
It is a lot.
When you said OLD, I was like, what is this acronym? I was sitting here for like 2 minutes, like, what's the O stand for? What's the L stand for? What's the D stand for? And then I was like, wait, let me read this.
I was for a second too,
Yeah,
but
because I just find that it's overwhelming, and then sometimes it's like I sometimes I'll just need, I don't have patience to do it myself because I'm really not like that techie. But if I have like someone to show me, boom, I don't ever need that help again.
This is where AI could really come into play, where somebody
They
can
don't
go
have
to
a
a
chat
site.
out there? I thought I saw.
They might have a chat where
Yeah.
you can just ask your, I need help with XYZ,
Uh-huh.
and then it gives you a list of where you need
Yeah.
to look.
The little
Yeah.
But anyway, I found that to be useful.
we
And I
spent
found
a
it
little
weird.
bit on this question and we're kind of talking about it now, so I was going to skip over it. How do local officials, mayor, city council, school board affect our daily lives directly than the national leaders? And we brought up 311 and the different ones like that, but is there anything else anyone wanted to highlight before we go to our last question
No, but
and we'll wrap
I
up?
think that for me, local officials as well as national leaders, I mean, to me, this is such a pivotal. I mean, these last, what is this, 24? When things were smooth during Obama's administration. It was just like, yeah, we're all right. Yeah. But ever since, during Trump's administration, I found it to be a terribly rocky road. 16, 17, 18, 20s. Oh my God, it was horrible. And I mean, my life was impacted from national bad policy on a regular basis. I mean, much of it was COVID, but that was COVID from 19 when it first started being like, what is this coming over? What is this coming over? All the way, certainly, it continues because he's continuing. But bad national policy seems to be, it affects us. It affects us on the regular basis. Certainly mayors, maybe city council, school boards. It all seems, but I cannot just say only that like national leaders don't affect it. These past 4 years, Biden's administration has felt still the rockiness of recovery.
I mean,
and that we had 4 years of awful. Now we've had 4 years of recovery, still trying to get our vehicle back on the road. It's like I don't like off-road driving. I don't like it.
You talked about social media earlier, even how X, formerly known as Twitter, had to change policies and change things that they were doing because of tactics that politicians were doing, and things like that. So like now we have certain restrictions, because of certain things. Even and like even on a local level, like even though they're closer geographically, it doesn't really have much of a like more or less of an impact than those that are national. It's just that it's kind of harder to reach those national. Like you can't just call 311 to get like a national issue corrected.
No, but
Right.
we certainly can be negatively impacted by bad.
Of course,
policy.
yes.
And it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah. Okay, so lastly, how can communities work together to ensure higher turnout for local elections? We talked about education, community events, grassroots campaigns, encouraging.
Those community events, I didn't go. I saw them. They had, to me, this was one of the first times when they had like food and was it the city was providing to do these. It was just one. Today is Saturday. Maybe it was Friday or Thursday. How are these working out? How are they working out? Like GLOwVOTE and things.
You want to speak to
Anybody
that?
else?
No, I don't have nothing to add to that.
I think you have a lot, but I'll go.
no, because when I wasn't thinking of the Go Vote ones, I haven't participated in them, but I have been to like other things with just like when people are trying to understand like evictions, rent, mortgage, or what's the other thing called? Intangible. When you get a house from someone that is passed away, but it's not in your name yet, intangible. Like I forget, it's some type of like language that I have seen those events go really well.
Have or have?
Yeah, they go really well. I think anytime when you have like a issue based thing,
Oh yeah.
it works really well because you'll draw those people out because I think
have specific concerns
yeah
and interested, not just hang around and see who's like whatever. No, they're about the business.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they go really well.
Well, they just had some that were about voting yesterday or the day before, and I saw the advertisement for it, or maybe it was a news that they had it, but I didn't know if anyone had gone or had known how it worked. Is
I got
anyone
a text from a friend who was basically like, hey, if you want to vote early, go to this thing. Vote today, West Philly. You don't need to wait until November to vote. It was just like, it was a flyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it, there's like word of mouth things of being able, like knowing what's happening within your community.
This was a block party. That's what they called it, a block party.
Oh, word.
Like block, not like neighborhood block, but more like a voting block. Like like you were gonna be talking about voting and voting early, and I don't really know what other things they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see it? Did you see it on the news or anywhere?
Oh, I know there's been a lot of, house parties, or not house parties, block parties and street fairs, like in Mount Airy, and they've always had voting contingent, people helping.
Yeah, they do. This was like 25 something North Broad Street, 2500 North Broad.
I never heard of this.
Yesterday.
Yeah, but I'm also in my bubble.
So we gotta get out our bubble. UNITY.
Okay.
So in the last 10 minutes, what we're gonna do is we'll just go around and just introduce ourselves again, and then kind of give our last and kind of thoughts, comments, ideas, anything that you want our listeners or readers, because not everyone can watch or listen, so we're going to have our transcript too. Read it.
Let's go.
So for me, again, I'm Lukey Looseleaf, and this is GLOwVOTE. Is really about those local steps that we can leap into political change. And my final thought is to just, really get engaged. And when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself as well, because I recently moved back, and that was one of the things that I wanted to get into. So me getting more engaged with the community is a goal of mine. So that's just my thought. I'll pass it to Lindo.
Hey everybody, my name is Leno. Yes, I think one of the things that I just want to leave y'all with is just like when we organize, we win, and it's the results is ongoing, and it's many victories, not just the one. Yeah, I think that's it. And then who I'm passing it to you.
Or are you reading?
Yeah, we'll pass it to Herb. I'm Herb John. Follow on IG. That is at HERBJAWN. I am a Black queer herbalist whose small businesses are focused on herbal education, wellness, and advocacy. Thank you, babe.
Yes, I'm Winona Wyatt. I creative of all sorts and love to solve problems. So this conversation has been just like it. I love how it gets me thinking and the ways that I want to brainstorm on how people can get out there and be more educated about the ways that they can take a more active role in their government so that they can feel like they are making change and they are more inspired to go out and vote, even locally, just because they know that this is the change that they can make.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Pam, did you want to leave?
I'm Matt Mizzacappa. Yeah, I'm inspired by this conversation, and yeah, I'm thinking about how people could go to local events or city council and make their voice heard. And I actually come from a theater background, and at one time I was working on a musical involving women's suffrage. I really studied that a lot, and during the pandemic I listened to a lecture online about it, and the professor, she was talking about, the history and how great it was, but then she said, oh, the Constitution still does not actually protect the right to vote. Mm-hmm. And I was flabbergasted. I think everyone else was flabbergasted because she had been just talking about how great the 19th Amendment was. And her point was that the 19th Amendment, and it's really upsetting because it's becoming mainstream, the bigoted Republicans are saying, oh, we don't want women to vote anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's very scary. But the 19th Amendment protects women from discrimination when they're voting. And there's other amendments, protects people based on race, protects people based on handicap, protects people based on ability to pay or financial, protects people based on age. But it actually doesn't protect the right to vote itself. So I believe there should be a constitutional amendment that says the right to vote shall not be denied or abridged for any reason, and that equal opportunity to vote should be by population, by proportion, equal number of polling places should be available, because unfortunately, Republicans are saying, oh, we don't want you to vote here in Fulton County or wherever. We can deny your vote, and now the Supreme Court says we don't even have to prove whether it's whether we acted based on racism or not. We can just take it away. So that event just made me realize that there's something missing in the Constitution. I just never thought we'd be in this situation with this election, facing fascism. But I hope we come through.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that like you're on any like social platforms that people can follow you?
Yeah, I am on Twitter. Not even, I don't even like calling it. That's a new name. But I am on Twitter, Matt Mez. I joined Twitter for my writing and musical writing and stuff like that. But then I wound up just almost always only political posts, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your input. I appreciate you taking 2 hours out your day to spend some time with my crazy behind. But yes, thank you again. And for those who tuned in, thank you for your participation. Thank you for being here with us as we talk about these issues. We'll continue the conversation, going forward, because this isn't something that we're just going to do now. And when the election comes, we don't want to talk about it no more. No, that's going to be crunch time, for us to continue these conversations, and maybe you all can join the room. So again, thank you, Lindo. Thank you to my guests. That's it for us. I don't normally do like a little out thing. I normally just be like, bye.